Hey everyone, Minty Bets here with Teddy Covers for our weekly Wager Talk Betting 101 segment. Last week we went through week 1 of NFL, and this week Teddy is going to give us some top tips for betting on the NBA. How are you, Teddy?
I'm doing all right, Minty. I'll tell you what, I'm ready for this sports hiatus to be over.
Me too. We need something.
We're 100 plus days into it now, and in theory, there's light at the end of the tunnel. So I would love to actually have some games scheduled and be handicapping them. But in the meantime, what do? We do our prep work. We get ready. We don't try to learn something that we don't. I'm not trying to learn a whole new skill set here. I'm trying to focus on maximizing the opportunities once the sports that I know well return back to the field or the court. And obviously, NBA is certainly one of those sports. So for today, I'm going to give you literally, this is my primer on how to bet and how to beat NBA. So I hope that it's valuable info. I hope it's good info. And that's all I got for intro. What about you, Minty?
Let's do it. I'm okay. I'm in the process of moving. I'm ready also for any team sport to come back on. MLB, NBA, I don't care. But let's see how it goes. Let's hope by the end of July, I think, is when everything is supposed to be okay again. But Teddy, let us know, why is it important for bettors to know these tips when dipping their toes into NBA betting?
Look, so NBA is a popular sport for many beginning bettors. However, when you look at the results, I would say if you talk to handicappers in Vegas, the professionals or the amateurs, NBA low down on the list of people's favorite sports to bet. Not for me. Yeah. I'm a big fan of the NBA. And I really think that a lot of what people have been taught about handicapping the NBA, et cetera, it can be summed up into 2 words: bad info. So we're going to talk today about the things that go into making NBA lines and the weaknesses of those lines, and that's the goal.
Andrew McKinnis of Sports Memo says hi, and he says fresh cut, Teddy, before we begin, so he hypes you up a little bit.
Appreciate
hi,
that,
Andrew.
Andrew.
Thank you. All right, let's get into tip number 1, Teddy. What is it?
So this is a tip that I've talked about, basically in just about every video that I've done. And I thought right here, it has to be number 1. What's the tip? It's real simple. Ride the hot and fade the cold. You want your money on good teams playing well. You want to be betting against bottom feeders playing poorly. Even when you're talking about teams everyone knows they stink. The Knicks last year, one of the worst teams in the NBA. After the All-Star break, 6-15 against the spread. Bad teams that are playing poorly are not teams you want your money on. Good teams playing well, look, say, there's no value there. There's no value there. We'll talk about riding streaks in a few minutes, but ride the hot, fade the cold. Catch teams when they're playing well and be betting on them. Bet against teams when they're playing poorly or they're bottom feeders. And that's as simple as it gets. I mean, really, you're talking about betting good teams when they're going well and betting bad teams when they're going poorly. That's my number 1 tip for beating the NBA. And it won't work necessarily day 1 of the season. But
right.
5-10 games in, that's a strategy you can use the entire rest of the year. You find a good team that's on a roll, you back them. And you back them again and again. You find a bad team that's playing poorly, just playing through the string, going through a rough patch, that's a team you can fade night in and night out.
All righty. I have to give a shout out to YPC Juice for joining us. Thank you. And Jeremy Scorpio, always a fan I see on here and on my Twitter. So, hi, guys. All right, Teddy, tip number 2. What you got?
Well, we got to talk about spots. And when you talk about most beginning to intermediate NBA bettors, there's a lot of attention paid to spots. I pay a lot of attention to spots. What do you mean by spots? Right. Back-to-back games, second of back-to-backs, or first of back-to-backs, depending on the coach and their philosophy. You're playing a weak team on the first of back-to-backs and a step-up game the next night. Maybe it's not the first of the back-to-backs is when you'll see the team exhale a little bit. Similarly, when you have back-to-backs and then another set of back-to-backs, 4 games in 5 nights, 5 games in 7 nights, you see these type of situations all the time in the NBA. Bettors need to be aware of them and adjust for them. Other spots, first game back off a road trip, especially off a successful road trip. That tends to be a significant flat spot for NBA teams.
Okay.
You have sandwich games as chalk. Step-up game, double-digit favorite game, then another step-up game. That middle game between tends to be a poor spot for the favorite. So be aware of the spots. Note that the markets will react to the spots, and then find if the markets have reacted enough. You make your decision. Have the markets reacted enough to these spots? Have they not? Just be aware that you're going to see these situations where your pure powering numbers aren't going to play out the way they should. Back-to-backs, 4 games in 5, first game back off a road trip, sandwich games as chalk. That's just 4. There's many more spot situations when it comes to the NBA. You want to be aware of when teams are highlighting a particular game, the game before, the game after. They may not get that same level of effort.
Right. All right. Note the spots was number 2. Number 3, Teddy.
So let's talk about NBA stats and the stats that actually matter. All right.
Okay, which are?
The markets are going to make their judgments on how good teams are based on a handful of stats, fewer even than the NFL, perhaps. The number one stat you're going to see the markets adjust to: offensive and defensive efficiency, points per 100 possessions, PP100, the abbreviation. The elite teams tend to have really good offensive and defensive efficiency rankings. The bad teams tend to be poor in those. But it's worth noting, those are the stats the markets will react to. They're not going to react to a team's win-loss record. We'll talk about that when it comes to like the Thunder, OKC in a few minutes. They're going to react to the statistical profile that a team is putting up, and it starts with offensive and defensive efficiency, points per 100 possession. Other stats that sharp bettors pay a lot of attention to: effective field goal percentage on offense and defense. Not pure field goal percentage, it's called effective field goal. It factors in three-point shooting, etc. It's a much better statistic to use for savvy bettors than standard field goal percentage. So offensive defense efficiency, effective field goal percentage, again, on offense and defense. Rebound rate percentage, the percentage of available rebounds. Turnover rate, again, percentage of possessions that end in turnovers. And of course, pace ratings for totals. The markets pay very close attention to those pace ratings, especially early in the season. But those are the advanced metric stats for for NBA that matter. The efficiency numbers, the effective field goal rates, the rebound rate, the turnover rates, and the pace. Note that home courts and the home court edge mean less for a lot of teams in the NBA, especially the good teams that win on the road. Their home court edge, not quite so strong. And of course, the bad teams that are losing everywhere, oftentimes their home court edge, slim to none. Now, just to return to that OKC, I was talking about the Thunder, who were the single best point spread team in the NBA prior to the shutdown by a fairly wide margin and good in all kinds of different roles. Well, again, the markets are going to pay attention to the stats. OKC, not in the top 10 in offensive efficiency, not in the top 10 in defensive efficiency. You know, I think they were like 10 and 11 or 11 and 12 in those two stats, but they weren't at the top. And therefore, a team like OKC, the market say, yeah, they're mediocre, they're pretty good. They're not very good. And when they play at a level that is higher than the advanced metric stats would indicate, those are teams that will continue to offer value. That's why even post All-Star break, the OKC Thunder were a good bet. So there are stats that matter, and the stats that will definitely affect the betting marketplace. But note that there will be exceptions to the statistical profile rules, and those are often the teams you're going to make the most money with.
Right. I have to give a shout out to David, or David maybe, joining us from Israel. Teddy, he says, Minty and Teddy, I like your show. So good information. So cute. Thanks for joining us, David, or David, sorry. All right, let's move on to number 4. Teddy, great stuff.
Yeah, and listen, I really appreciate all the comments. I mean, honestly, Minty, we've gotten nothing but positive feedback since we started doing these 101s like 3 months ago, and I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you. The best appreciation is tell your friends about it. Pass the word. But thank you. Really, genuinely, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll do my little Elvis. All right.
Oh, wait.
What?
I'm sorry. Before we move on, I have something to say about this. Do you know why it was said, I'm sorry, I'm actually going to say this. How many encores did Elvis Presley ever do in a show? Like, how many encores in general do you think?
I have no idea.
0. That's why he says Elvis has left the building. That's why the announcer always says Elvis has left the building, because he's never, ever done any encores. All right. That was
I did not know that.
Just wanted to slip that in there before you get to tip number 4 for.
Well, that's one of those little facts that you're glad to have in your head, because maybe someday you'll use it and impress somebody. It was
one of those times.
Elvis has left the building. NBA betting tip number 4. And on like the next 2, 4 and 5 in my mind of all the tips, and I know I didn't put it at the top. One's pretty important, but God, this is the key. These are the key. These next 2 tips are absolutely the key, in my opinion. Number 4, identify teams in their best and worst roles ASAP.
Okay.
2020. Okay, the 2019-20 season, the season that we're currently in and may still yet get to finish. Okay, right off the bat, Lakers, great road team, right from the first week of the season. Sixers, miserable on the road, right from the first week of the season. They're worse than the Knicks on the highway. OKC, fantastic as an underdog from the first week of the season. Cleveland, for the season as favorite. Not they were chalk a lot. They were chalk, I think 6 or 7 times. They didn't cover any of them. Off a win. Some teams step up, some teams don't. Off a win, the Spurs, the Pistons, the Bulls were all awful. Couldn't put together 2 wins in a row. Off a loss, Clippers, great. Heat, great.
Yep.
Let's not forget totals and how they relate to rolls. Teams that cash sides when they go under. Teams that fly over when they're big dogs, et cetera, et cetera. It's up to you to identify these before the markets do. And the markets take their sweet time sometimes. Now, as I was doing a little bit of work to put my list together, and what you do is I Google other people's, and one of the things that I always see is that recreational bettors bet teams, professional bettors bet numbers. Okay, and there's truth to that, but when you're talking about identifying teams in their best and worst roles ASAP, this is a legitimate weakness that recreational bettors can exploit, because the wise guys aren't going to be looking at this particular area. They're looking at big numbers. They're looking at the metadata. What we want to do is take the metadata and isolate it by team and by role. And if you're doing that, the market's going to say, okay, this is what the Spurs are supposed to be, and they won yesterday, we might adjust a half point. If you see the Spurs every time they win, they can't bring that effort the next night, or the Pistons or the Bulls, that adjustment needs to be more. The markets are giving them for. So credit for it. So it's definitely, Minty, a situation where the casual bettor can take advantage of the wise guy bias on numbers, on broad numbers, to find teams in their respective best role.
All right. That was number 4. Identify teams in their best and worst roles. Oh my goodness. Are you okay? Is it allergies?
No, it's fine. I'm a smoker. So, that's the beauty of COVID-19. You walk around, and people are like,
You're like, yeah, exactly.
But no, it's just me not taking care of my body, and I'll, drinking tea.
Oh, Teddy. All right. Well, yeah, tea is a good thing. All right. Number 5. And remember, Teddy highlights number 4 and 5 as being one of the most important. Of course, these 2 are the ones that he wants to highlight. So number 5, Teddy, what do you got for us?
This is number 1. This is all this stuff is good. This is the secret sauce.
It's gooder.
And it works across sports. It's not unique to NBA. But the NBA marketplace is somewhat unique in the fact that you get these season-long numbers that the markets are reacting to. And when a team morphs off their season-long level of play, the better and the worse, the markets do not adjust quickly.
Right.
Talk about maximizing more. A role player gets hurt. not a guy who's going to move the point spread. And guess what?
Mhm.
He's a key role player. The team's 1-9 against the spread their next 10 with adjusted rotation, and the markets barely notice. The
Okay.
coach says he wants to run. Team starts cashing overs. The ebbs and flows of a normal season are your money makers. Again, it's my number one betting tip, my number one strategy reading the NBA. Teams that are undervalued can stay that way for months. Teams that are overvalued can stay that way for months.
Yep.
If the betting markets aren't adjusting. And when these teams morph, again, I'm a watcher. I spend my night, I got, the 3 TVs right here. I'm clicking and switching volume here, volume there. And if you're watching, you're going to get a sense of, wow, the fact that this player's out, that really affected their bench. Now their bench stinks. Now this team's way overvalued. Or, wow, they just figured this out. They didn't figure it out. Their defense rotations are great. Look what they did in the fourth quarter of their last 2 games. This is now a bet-on team. Ride those morphs. Maximize the morphs. Bet on them early and often. So this comes with ride the hot and fade the cold. But it's more to it than that. It's especially when a team is hot for a reason, where a team is cold for a reason. You jump on those trends and you bet on or against that team until the streak is done. NBA is absolutely a league where you can and should be riding streaks. And if you're going to maximize your profit off the morphs when teams change one or other. And a lot of times, a star player comes back, it takes 3 or 4 games, before the adjustment there. Not necessarily day one, but, or even a key role player comes back. It takes a couple of games, but once, if you're watching, you see, wow, this team's a lot better than they were even 2 or 3 games ago. Maybe you ride them for a little while. NBA, whether it's sides, whether it's totals, to maximize your morphs, you're going to be riding streaks. And that's absolutely something that I will do as often as possible in the NBA.
All right. Number 5 was maximize the morphs. And Teddy, we have a request. Can you say ebbs and flows one more time, please?
Sure. Ebbs and flows.
Ebbs and flows. There you go, Jeremy. You're welcome. All right. Number 6. At least you didn't request me to say it. So number 6, Teddy.
You had to say it to ask me to say it again.
Maybe it was for me.
All right. No. So there's 2 tips that I'm going to talk about psychology. Handling your brain when it comes to the NBA. Okay. And the first one has to do with players sitting. Players at times, someone's going to sit at the last minute. You're going to take the worst of the number on occasion. You're going to be, I laid 5 and now the spread's 2, LeBron's out or whatever. These bets are dynamic. So make sure even after you make your bet that you're paying attention throughout the day. As opposed to football, in football, you can make a bet on Sunday night for the following week and be pretty confident you guys are going to suit up. There aren't many practice injuries or whatever. In the NBA, it's not like that. You see players get scratched in the half hour before tip-off on a fairly regular basis. So you have to pay more attention to the markets day in, day out in the NBA than you need to when you're making bets in football early in the week. And there are times that you're going to want to get off the game quickly. Oh, guess what? So-and-so's sitting. I got to better off this game, and I better do it fast. Because, 10 minutes later, the line's already moved 2-3 points, and you've missed it. So be aware of that, and be aware that sometimes you're going to get the worst of the number, and that's just the way it is. Even professional bettors, even good bettors, are not 100%, I timed this line move perfectly. Hell no. Most of the time, yes. All the time, no. So there are going to be times where you just took a bad number and, crap, It's definitely worth noting. I'm going to talk about it right here. Okay. Some teams show up without their star players and some don't. You can make a lot of money in the NBA betting against the line moves for star players who are sitting when teams step up without them. Look at the Raptors. The Raptors, when Siakam or Lowry were hurt, they had all those injuries. Boom, cover another point spread and cover another point spread and cover another. If you look at the Sixers without Embiid, or the Wizards without Beal, or the Clippers without Kawhi, it's a very different story. Those teams. Yeah. But again, it's unique to each team. It's unique to each injury. This is info that if you follow the NBA closely, you'll be able to make money off of. whether you're betting on these teams or betting against them when a key player sits, you'll know their MO when somebody is scratched at the last minute. So, or even, somebody is scratched relatively late. But even, Embiid was out for however long, all right, Philly's not a team I want without their star.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to bet against them or leave the game alone. There's plenty of teams like that, and there's plenty of teams that the star player sits, and the team's just fine. If you can identify those early, you can bet them all year long.
All right. That was number 6. We are at number 7 now. We're getting through this, Teddy. We're over halfway there.
Well, yeah, I said this. I mean, this is what you were saying. Was this a two-parter? I'm like, no. This is, you want my top NBA tips? We can get them done in one show. And look, number 7 is I'm going to talk about derivatives. Mm-hmm. Derivatives help modify the swings. It also means that when you're red hot, derivatives might cut some of your profit off. But we talk about derivatives. We're talking about first quarter bets, first half bets, first to 10 or 15 or 20 bets, player props. Yeah. Player props are key, especially when you get, the marquee matchups and the, again, you go back, if you're betting on the Lakers, all right, well, maybe let's bet, an Anthony Davis prop over. Or let's bet whoever their opponent is under on something. I mean, there are other ways to get involved in the derivative marketplace that will, again, it doesn't mean that if you bet on the Lakers and bet on this prop and bet on that, you're going to cash them all, but it allows you to mitigate some of the swings, and especially when it comes to the bet, if you have Lakers first quarter, first half, and full game, if you have a brutal beat in the full game, maybe still cash your first quarter, first half. On the other hand, they may have had a slow first quarter, first half, and then your full game is exactly the second half of the game plays out exactly how you thought it was going to, and they blow them out. It'll mitigate some of the swings, high and low, when you're involved in the derivative marketplace. And again, derivative markets tend to move a notch or two slower than the regular point spreads and totals. It's a good notch or two slower sometimes, and that way you can find stale lines. The point spread's moved for the full game, but maybe the first half line hasn't moved the way it was supposed to. The first quarter line hasn't moved that it was supposed to. So if you see the screen going black, you're looking at the Wager Talk or the Sports Memo live odds screen, that incredible free product that we offer. You can see, all right, hey, this game just got painted across the board, but maybe I can find first half or first quarter that hasn't yet moved. It's not unusual to find stale numbers in the derivative market even after the broader marketplace has already moved.
Right, exactly. That was number 7, guys. Derivatives help modify the swings. I want to say hi to Mike, Jonathan, and Jordan. Thanks for joining us, guys. If you even type in the chat, I will say hi to you. And thanks for joining us, guys. Number 8, Teddy. Let's move on to number 8.
So I'm a big fan of betting in game for the NBA, and the reason
so
is because NBA is a game of runs. Okay, and I like half times too. Your optimal scenario. This is my optimal scenario for any in-game betting situation. I want Team A plus points or plus price in the money line, and Team B plus points or plus price in the money line. And then all you're doing is not sweating anything and hoping it lands somewhere in the middle, and you can hit those middles. But you can take advantage. Literally, if you're watching and betting in game on a nightly basis, you find that every night, or close to it. You have to get your bets down at the right time. You don't always cash the middles. You don't cash the middle. There lots of times where you're going to get juiced out on those, but you can ride the run. My standard strategy for betting the NBA, talk about betting it in game, is the team you want to be betting on is the team whose coach just called timeout because the other team went on an 8-0 run. That's your bet on spot. Not the team that just went on the run. But you want the team that just called the time. That's your in-game opportunity, assuming you think they're going to come back. But in-game betting, you can ride the runs in the NBA in a way that's easier to do than in-game betting for MLB or football or many other sports, because the NBA naturally has that ebb and flow to it, where you can ride the runs back and forth.
Yes, ebb and flow. Hey, Jeremy. All right, number 8 was in-game betting. Great for NBA. Totally agree. Number 9, Teddy, very important right here. Number 9.
Yeah, I mean, again, when I'm typing it out, I wrote this one in big capital letters. Track your results. But it's more than just that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you're going to track your results.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be very team specific in your tracking. What teams you have a good read on? What teams you don't have a good read on? Hey, I'm 7-1 betting the Celtics, and I'm 1-5 betting the Raptors. I'm going to look for Celtics games to be betting on and not Raptors games right now. You want to be paying attention to the broader picture as you're tracking your results. Are you winning when you're laying -8 or higher, or are you losing with those bets? Are you cashing in with live dogs, or are you losing those bets? I'm tracking by team. I'm tracking by point spread range, and those factors help me identify before anything else which areas I'm succeeding with, and it makes it easier to pull the trigger on that stuff. Accurate tracking really helps you know what type of bets you're winning with, which ones not so much. Post-mortem your results. When I say track your results, that also means post-mortem. Hey, what did I do? I won this handicap. Was it the right side? Did I nail it? Was I just lucky? If I lost this game, the right side? Did I? What can I improve my thinking about it? Night after night, throughout the course of the season, after the bets are over, you do it first thing in the morning, the next morning, whenever you want to do it. But that post-mortem, where you're refining your process every single day, it helps. It absolutely helps. So track those results, and track those results not just by team, but by point spread range, et cetera, et cetera. And it'll help you identify which squads you have good reads on and what types of bets you should be making and which ones not so much.
Absolutely. All right, that was number 9, guys. Track your results. Super important. Number 10, also super important. Something we mention in almost every Betting 101 video. Line shop.
Yeah, and if I don't mention it, it's I'm guilty of malpractice, because you know there are so many bettors out there. They're like, yeah, I can do this. I got my one bookie over here, and I got this one account over there. You're like, no. Yep. Every account available to you, you need to be able to put some money in there and have that line as a possibility for you. Now, look, you're gonna lose bets by a half point in the NBA every month. Sometimes every week, sometimes every day. I had a run last year where I think it was 6 bets in a 4-day span. I lost 5 of them by a point or less. I mean, sometimes you're just running really bad and you're getting hooked. Yeah. And even when you're line shopping and all of that, it happens sometimes. Okay? It can make you crazy. So the answer to that is have more outs. Okay? And even if you have every out, if you're in Las Vegas and you know what my phone looks like, Minty. It's got one app after the next after the next. I got a whole page of apps on my phone for Las Vegas. And even then, you're going to lose games by a half point. Okay, it happens, but every half point does matter. Let me give you an example. You're a 55% bettor, winning bettor. You make 100 bets with 2 pushes. So actually 98 graded bets, 110 to win 100. You end up with a $560 profit. Okay? 100 bets at 55% with 2 pushes, 110 to win 100, make $560. Now, out of those 100 bets, turn 2 losses into pushes.
Okay.
Turn those 2 pushes into wins. And instead of a $560 profit, now it's a $980 profit. It's basically a 75% improvement on your ROI. Out of 100 bets, turning 2 losses into pushes and 2 pushes into wins has a 75% improvement on your ROI.
Crazy.
It's not crazy. It's little edges over time. That's our advantage. We don't have to bet every game. And as long as we have little edges on the bets that we're making, over time we will turn a profit. Little edges over time is everything we're trying to do. You're not finding a lot of 80% bets, 90% bets, You're getting little edges, and over the course of time, that's how you make money betting sports. Line shopping and having the ability to push when others are losing by a hook and to win when others are pushing, it makes an enormous, enormous difference in your bottom line.
Absolutely. All right. That was number 10. Line chop number 11, Teddy. This one's interesting.
Yeah, I said I was going to bring up a couple things about, psychology. And
Uh-huh.
NBA psychology is second to none. Okay, you're going to have some unbelievably bad beats in this league.
Yeah.
They're insane fourth quarter swings. Your 20-point, your underdog that's winning by 20 going into the fourth is going to lose the game by 6, and you were catching 5.5. Recognize it's going to happen. Recognize that it can happen, like I was talking about before, right? That stretch where, lose by a hook, lose by a hook, lose by a point, lose by a hook. Sometimes they string together.
Yeah.
If you recognize that going in, you're more likely to be able to exhale when this type of thing happens. And I wrote try. I wrote the key word, try not to let it affect your thinking for the next day or the day after. When you get in one of these ruts, sometimes you got to take a day off. You have to. All right, I'm gonna go hike up in the mountains for today, or I'm gonna go bowling, or I'm gonna do something where I'm not gonna. There are times where if it's making you crazy and you can't focus, you have to take a day off. But you never want to take a day off.
Yeah.
So you really and you can't let one bad beat crush you, or two. When you get a string of them in a row, you really try not to let it affect your thinking for the next day, and as best you can. And again, if you're tracking your results, hey, I got a good read on this team. I'm winning well with these kind of bets. When you're maximizing morphs, when you're identifying teams in their proper roles and their best roles, if you're doing everything else right and you're going through a string of bad beats, you just try to breathe out, exhale, find your moment of zen, and then get right back into it. You can't let it beat you up about the next day. If your process is right, there's going to be times where you're just unlucky. It happens. But you can't let it eat you alive, and you can't let it change your process to the level that the things you were doing correctly, you're not doing correctly because you've been psychologically affected by the tough beat you've suffered. So you got to breathe. You got to breathe, win or lose. You got to breathe and try to make your decisions in a calm mode as opposed to in a I can't believe that just happened mode.
Yes. Earlier, our listener Demetrius said you can't make money from NBA last minute. They keep the ball and they don't cover the spread and always lose for a point. Yes, and I said I agree. And then this bullet point was exactly kind of what I was telling him. Why I personally do not like betting NBA because there is crazy fourth quarter swings, last 20-second swings. It's just like too much for my heart to take. So I'm glad you touched on that.
In hockey, you have the open net goals. In football, you have the meaningless touchdown at the end of the game. Do they punch it in? Do they not punch it in? I mean, in baseball, you have relief pitchers.
Yeah.
Who have a special level of hell just for relief pitchers. So there are issues across sports when it comes to tough beats. The NBA seems to have some of the worst. I don't disagree with that at all. But it's not a unique NBA problem. That's across sports.
Just remember what Teddy said. Just breathe and be zen, okay? Last tip of the video segment, number 12.
And this is key. Playoffs are different.
Yes.
The first 11 tips are all about the grind. Not that every tip is going to be adjusted for the playoffs, but this is about the grind of an NBA regular season. I promise. We'll have a whole different video for the NBA playoffs because the NBA playoffs there's a whole different bunch of theories that are largely crap. The zigzag theory. Sure, it worked 25 years ago, bro. Keep talking about it. It's as good as the Monday Night Football home dog theory that also worked 25 years ago. But this is about the grind of an NBA regular season. We will do a different video for the NBA playoffs. We'll do that obviously when the playoffs, knock on wood, are approaching, and I'm hoping that that will be in the not too distant future, Minty. I would love. Let's put it this way: I look forward to nothing more than doing an NBA playoff video with you because that means that we've had the season and it started and it hasn't crashed and burned yet. So obviously we'll do a video for the NBA playoffs when the time is right. But no, this is not about playoff strategy. This is specifically geared towards helping you make a profit during the NBA regular season.
Right. Exactly. All right. And that was tip number 12. Playoffs are different. That was very short. All right. And like Teddy said, we'll do possibly another video for NBA when it's playoff time, when the time is right. Thank you so much, Sir Teddy, for all that great info. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us and interacting with me on the chat. I had fun reading what you guys have to say. Check out our other one-on-one betting videos right here on Wager Talk TV and subscribe. Don't forget to check out our very popular NBA tip-off show as well, which I believe is back. Stay safe, everyone. Thanks, Teddy.
Thank you, Minty. Have a great day. Cheers.